Easter Sunday is supposed to smell like chocolate, fresh flowers, and family gathered around a table. For me, it smells like the trail, because it was on Easter, with the table set, the kids dressed up in brand new outfits, and me carrying the food out from the kitchen, that my husband looked me dead in the eyes and told me he was done. No fight, no tears, just this cold, rehearsed calm that hurt worse than anything he'd ever said to me before. And he walked out. He left the front door wide open, left the food on the table, left 3 kids sitting there, staring at the empty chair where their dad used to sit. I didn't cry that day. I cleared the plates, wrapped up the food, got the kids bathed and into bed. And then, in the bathroom, with the shower running so no one could hear me, I slid down to the floor and sat there, trying to figure out if any of it was actually real. What I didn't know, what nobody knew, is that this wasn't the end of the story. 3 years later, the same man who walked out on Easter showed up on Easter, and this time I was a completely different woman. My name is Karen. I'm 44 years old.
If you saw me today, you'd probably see a calm, put-together woman. Hair pulled back, hands always busy with something, eyes that take in a whole lot more than they ever give away. But 3 years ago, I was someone else entirely. I was the woman who got up first and went to bed last, every single day without exception. The one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who packed the lunches and scheduled the dentist appointments and ironed her husband's work shirts, even after running on 4 hours of sleep. The one who never asked for anything, not because she didn't need anything, but because somewhere along the way she had learned that needing things made her feel like a burden. Ryan and I got married young. I was 23, he was 27. We didn't have much money, but we had a plan. He would finish his degree first, then it would be my turn. He finished, landed a job at a construction firm downtown, moved up fast, and I stayed back, waiting for a turn that never came. First came Tyler, then Ashley, then Noah. 3 kids in 7 years, and every single time I brought up going back to school, Ryan had a reason why the timing just wasn't right. The kids are still so little. We need the income. Honestly, you're better at all this than I'd ever be. I believed him. For years, I believed every single word. But there was something about Karen that most people never noticed. In the drawer of her nightstand, she kept an old spiral notebook. Not a diary, just numbers, expenses, income, property values, important dates. Karen always knew exactly what everything they had built together was truly worth. That one small habit would end up changing everything. The year before he left, Ryan changed. Not overnight, slowly. The way water damage works. First, a small stain appears on the ceiling, then the moisture spreads through the walls, and then one day, the whole thing just gives out. He started coming home late, not every night, but consistently enough that the kids started asking at the dinner table, "Is Dad eating with us tonight?" I kept saying yes, even when I wasn't sure anymore. He started taking his phone into the bathroom. He used to leave it on the kitchen counter, face up, like it was nothing. Now he carried it everywhere, screen down, always within reach, always slightly angled away from me. And he started picking at me. The food was cold. The house was cluttered. I had let myself go. I wasn't the same woman he married. Small comments. Quiet poison delivered in small doses over a long period of time. One evening, right at the dinner table, Tyler was 12, Ashley was 9, Noah was 6. Ryan looked at me and said, "You used to take care of yourself, Karen. What happened?" Tyler looked up at me from across the table. I saw something in his face, not embarrassment at me, but embarrassment at his father. But in that moment, I felt like the shame was mine to carry.
I said nothing, served the food, cleaned up the kitchen after. But for the first time in years, something inside me didn't fully bend. Then came Christmas dinner, with Ryan's mother there, his sisters there, the whole family, and Ryan made a joke about my weight. Everyone laughed. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do with my face. His mother patted my hand and said, "Oh, Karen, don't be so sensitive. He says it because he loves you." That night, I understood something I hadn't fully faced before. His family would never be in my corner. The house that we had built together started to feel like a cage, a nicely decorated cage, clean curtains, flowers on the table, good candles, but a cage all the same. And the man who kept me in it slept right next to me every night. What nobody sees when a woman is just a stay-at-home mom is the invisible inventory of everything she gave up. Karen gave up her career. She had completed 19 credit hours toward a business administration degree when she dropped out to work and help Ryan finish his. He graduated. She never did. Karen gave up her savings. When Ryan wanted to invest in his first construction project, it was Karen's money, inherited from her grandmother, that covered the foundation costs. There was never any talk of paying it back. Nothing was ever written down. It was both of theirs. Karen gave up her health. 3 pregnancies, each with its own complications. The last one, Noah, was born 6 weeks premature. Karen spent 22 days in the NICU with him, sleeping in a chair, barely eating. Ryan came on weekends when he could because work doesn't stop for anyone. Karen gave up her people. She slowly stopped seeing her closest friends because Ryan said that crowd wasn't a good influence. She distanced herself from her favorite cousin because Ryan couldn't stand her. One by one, without fully realizing it was happening, she was left alone. Karen gave up her voice. She learned not to contradict Ryan in public, not to share opinions when he talked business with other people, to say whatever you think is best, even when everything inside her was screaming that it wasn't. And she did all of it believing it was love, that this was how you built a family, that sacrifice had a payoff. It didn't. Or rather, it did, just not the way she expected. What nobody knew, not Ryan, not his family, not the neighbors who whispered, is that Karen had been quietly collecting something for 9 months. Not anger, evidence. It started when she found, completely by accident, a receipt tucked into the pocket of a shirt she was about to wash. A restaurant, a date, an amount that didn't match any business dinner Ryan had ever mentioned. Karen didn't confront him. Karen took a photo of it. Then came the bank statements. Ryan had always managed the finances. That was his department. But Karen had access to the joint account, and she started actually looking at the numbers. Really looking. There were cash withdrawals that didn't line up with any household expense, small, irregular transfers to an account number she didn't recognize. Karen wrote everything down in her notebook. Then she went further. She met with an attorney, a woman recommended by the secretary at the kids' school, someone Ryan had never heard of, in a part of town where no one knew either of them. The attorney told her something Karen never forgot. The law protects whoever shows up first with the right documentation. Karen started preparing. Not for revenge, not yet. Just to make sure that if what she suspected turned out to be true, she wouldn't be left with nothing. It was true. and it was worse than she had imagined. 3 weeks before that Easter, Karen found out everything. Not through a confession, not through some careless mistake he made, through a voice memo Ryan accidentally sent to her instead of the woman it was meant for. Her name was Melissa, and in that voice memo, 47 seconds long, which Karen listened to 3 times sitting in her car in the grocery store parking lot with her earbuds in, Ryan said that he was exhausted by the situation at home, that Karen had become dead weight, that the kids were old enough to handle it, that Melissa was the only good thing that had happened to him in years, that after Easter weekend he was going to have a conversation. 47 seconds. 16 years of marriage summed up in 47 seconds. Karen didn't fall apart right there. She put her phone in her purse, walked into the store, got everything on the list, made small talk with the cashier, loaded the bags into the trunk, drove home, put the groceries away, made dinner, helped Noah with his homework, and after the kids were in bed, she opened the nightstand drawer. She pulled out her notebook and wrote one new line at the bottom of the page. No more doubt. Time to move. What Ryan didn't know was that Karen already had copies of everything. The bank statements, the receipts, the property appraisal she had quietly ordered, the documents showing Ryan as a partner in a small company, a company that Karen's inheritance had helped start and that had never once been registered in her name. 47 seconds was all it took to close 9 months of preparation. There's a moment in some women's lives that doesn't announce itself. No music swells, the light doesn't change, there's no sign from the universe. Just a single instant where something that was already broken finally breaks all the way, and in that last crack, something entirely new is born. For Karen, that moment came on a Thursday morning, 4 days before Easter. She woke up early, like always, walked to the bathroom mirror, like always, and she looked at herself. Not a quick glance, but really looked. She saw the exhaustion, the years, the way her shoulders were slightly hunched forward, like her body had learned to take up less space. And something inside her said, not anymore. Not with anger, with absolute clarity. Karen had spent months in survival mode, gathering, documenting, waiting. That Thursday, she shifted into something else. She called her attorney and said she was ready to start moving the pieces. She called her older sister, the one person in her family she still saw regularly, and said, without crying, I need you to be available this week. She called the bank and, with complete composure, asked about her options as a joint account holder. And then she drove to pick up her kids from school. She watched them come down the front steps, Tyler with his enormous backpack, Ashley mid-conversation with her best friend, Noah sprinting toward her with both arms out. She pulled all 3 of them in at once and thought, for them, yes, but also for me. The woman who had learned to make herself smaller was gone. The one who replaced her knew exactly what came next. Karen didn't want to destroy Ryan. She wanted to protect herself, protect her kids, and make sure that every single thing she had built, sacrificed, and personally financed ended up exactly where it belonged. The plan was straightforward. 4 steps. Step 1. The bank account. Karen was a joint account holder with full legal rights to 50% of the funds. With guidance from her attorney, she withdrew her portion, not the full account, just what was legally hers, and transferred it to a personal account she had opened in her name only, at a different bank entirely. Ryan wouldn't know until he tried to use the account. Step 2. The house. The property was in both their names, but Karen had documentation proving that the down payment, 30% of the home's purchase price, had come entirely from her personal inheritance.
Her attorney had already prepared a motion to have that contribution formally recognized in the asset division proceedings. In plain terms, Ryan could not sell or refinance without her signature, and she would not sign anything that wasn't fair. Step 3. The business. Ryan was the majority partner in a small construction company, but Karen had documented proof that the startup capital, the funds that got the business off the ground, had come from her personal savings. Her attorney prepared a financial interest claim, not to tear the business apart, to acknowledge what Karen had put in and never been compensated for. Step 4. The kids. Karen would not use her children as leverage, but she would make absolutely sure that custody was handled properly, with a judge, with documentation, with witnesses if it came to that.
4 steps. No screaming, no scenes, no drama. Just paperwork, signatures, dates. The same cold efficiency Ryan had used on her for years was now working entirely in Karen's favor. Good Friday, Ryan came home earlier than usual. He had the face of a man who has been rehearsing something difficult, that practiced expression of someone who has thought long and hard about this. Karen saw him walk in. She was in the kitchen, getting ahead on the Easter lunch she was preparing for the next day. The house smelled like real food, like home, like always. Ryan sat down at the kitchen table, put his elbows on the wood, took a slow breath. "Karen, I need to talk to you." "Not right now. I'm in the middle of something." He frowned. He wasn't used to that answer. "It's important." "Tomorrow, after lunch." And Karen kept cooking, steady hands, didn't look up. Ryan drifted into the living room, thrown off. That night, he tried to use his debit card to pay for dinner. Not at home, obviously. The card was declined. He called the bank, was told there had been changes to the account and that he'd need to come in person with proper identification. He tried to transfer money through the app. The available balance was less than half of what he expected. Karen, in the bedroom, heard his footsteps moving restlessly through the house, heard his voice, low and tense, on the phone, almost certainly with Melissa. She closed her eyes, slept better than she had in years. Easter morning, the kids woke up excited. There were eggs hidden all over the house. Karen had hidden them the night before, same as every year. Ryan came downstairs looking like he hadn't slept, found his kids running through the hallway laughing, found the table set, the flowers, the food, and found Karen, dressed, calm, pouring coffee, like everything was perfectly normal. But nothing was normal. Placed quietly on the table beside Ryan's plate was an envelope. He opened it. Inside were documents, preliminary asset division filings, prepared by an attorney, signed by Karen the week before. Ryan looked up. Karen was watching him from across the table. "We'll talk after lunch," she said, with a calm that left him completely speechless. The kids didn't notice the envelope. They were too busy counting their chocolate eggs. But Ryan understood, right then, that something had permanently changed. Lunch ended. The kids went to Karen's sister's house. She had arranged it ahead of time without telling Ryan. When the front door closed, the two of them were alone in the living room. Ryan tried to take control of the conversation. That was always his move. Speak first, speak louder, project confidence. "Karen, I need you to let me explain." "No," she said. One word. No tears, no raised voice. "Sit down, Ryan." He sat, and for the first time in 16 years, Ryan was the one who listened. Karen opened her folder. She laid the documents on the table, one at a time. The bank statements with the irregular transfers, the restaurant receipts, the property appraisal, the business formation documents, and last, the final page, a written transcript of the voice memo, all 47 seconds, word for word.
Ryan went pale.
I can explain. I didn't ask for an explanation, Karen said. I'm here to tell you what's going to happen. And she did, point by point, in the voice of someone who had rehearsed this conversation not out of anger, but out of pure necessity. The house would remain jointly owned until a judge determined fair distribution, accounting for her original down payment contribution. The bank account had already been divided according to her legal entitlement. The business would need to formally recognize her financial stake or face legal proceedings. Custody of the kids would be shared, but she would have primary residence. Ryan listened to all of it, and when Karen finished, he asked something she hadn't expected. "When did you find out?" "Earlier than you think," she said. "And you stayed?" "I stayed to get ready. There's a difference." Ryan looked down at the table. Karen gathered her documents, closed the folder, and stood up. Karen didn't ask for Ryan to be left with nothing. She didn't want to see him homeless. She didn't want her kids to lose their father. She wasn't after blood. She wanted what was fair, and fair is not the same thing as revenge. Through the legal process, the following was determined. The house would be sold within 2 years, with Karen receiving 60% of the proceeds, recognizing the down payment she had funded with her inheritance. In the meantime, she and the kids would remain living there. The business would pay Karen a financial settlement for the capital she had contributed at its founding, a sum Ryan would pay back in monthly installments over 3 years. The joint account was permanently closed. Each of them managed their own finances going forward. And Ryan, who had spent years skipping the bill, not doing the work his marriage required, not seeing what he actually had, now had to show up for his own life, for real, without a safety net, without Karen quietly handling everything he never noticed. For the first time in his adult life, Ryan Mitchell had to face the full cost of his choices. Melissa lasted another 4 months. Once the easy access to money dried up, once the shine of the successful guy started to fade, Melissa found her reasons to move on. Ryan never said it directly, but Tyler, who was 15 by then and understood far more than the adults around him gave him credit for, told Karen one afternoon, "Dad's alone now, Mom." Karen looked at him. "That was his choice," she said quietly, and left it at that. This is where the story shifts completely, because there is something that nobody ever knew. Not Ryan, not his family, not a single neighbor or coworker. Karen didn't start preparing when she found that receipt in his shirt pocket. She started long before that. 2 years before that Easter, Karen had quietly gone back to school. Online classes late at night after the kids were asleep, and Ryan was working late, in complete silence, without telling a single soul. 1 year before that Easter, Karen had completed a certificate program in business administration, with honors. 6 months before that Easter, she had started working, quietly on a freelance basis, as a financial consultant for a small logistics company. The contact was a childhood friend, someone before Ryan, before he had decided that crowd wasn't a good influence. The income from that work went into an account Ryan never knew existed. When Ryan walked out that Easter believing he was leaving behind a woman with no income, no career, and no support system, he was actually leaving a woman who had spent 2 years rebuilding in silence everything he thought he had taken from her. The envelope with the legal documents wasn't the beginning of the end. It was simply the moment Karen decided Ryan could finally know what she had already known for a long time. The difference between them wasn't money or paperwork. It was that Karen had been building a future without him, while he wasn't even paying attention. And then came the second Easter, not the one where he left, the one where he came back. Ryan called on a Saturday in March, 3 years after walking out. He called ahead, at least he had learned that much. He said he wanted to talk, that he had changed, that he had finally understood everything he'd thrown away, that he wanted to try again. Karen listened to the whole thing without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "You can come Sunday to see the kids. Be here by 11. What about us? Can we talk about us?" Pause. "There is no us, Ryan. That stopped existing 3 years ago." He showed up Easter Sunday. The table was set, different now. Smaller. 4 places only. Karen, Tyler, Ashley, and Noah. Ryan stood in the doorway holding a box of chocolates, wearing the face of a man who was hoping to be forgiven. Karen opened the door, looked at him. Not with hatred, not with love, with something far harder to arrive at, quiet indifference. "The kids are in the living room," she said, and stepped aside to let him in. But she did not invite him to sit at the table. Ryan spent the afternoon with his children. He listened to them, held them, made promises that this time, maybe, he would actually keep. And when he left, before pulling the door closed behind him, he turned back to look at Karen. "I made the worst mistake of my life," he said. Karen held his gaze for just a moment. "Yes," she said, "but it was the best thing that ever happened to me." And she closed the door. In the backyard of the house, the same house they had bought together, the one that was now entirely hers, Karen had a rose bush. She had planted it the year Noah was born. It had survived droughts, hard winters, long stretches when nobody tended to it because there was too much chaos happening inside the house. That Easter Sunday, after Ryan left and the kids were in bed, Karen stepped outside. The rose bush was blooming, deep red, wide open. She sat down on the cool patio steps, the same way she had once sat on a cold bathroom floor 3 years before. But this time she wasn't crying. This time she was just looking. She thought about the woman she used to be, the one who made herself smaller, the one who always had something to swallow down and keep quiet. She thought about the woman she was now, her own income, her degree finally finished, 3 children who looked at her and saw someone who did not break. She thought about everything a woman loses when she disappears completely into someone else's life without saving anything for herself. And she thought about everything that comes back when she finally decides to belong to herself again. She cut 1 rose, put it in the vase on the table, the small table, the one with 4 chairs, and turned off the kitchen light. Some women get left behind, but the ones who survive it, the ones who don't shatter but instead quietly rebuild, end up creating something no man who ever walked out can come back and claim. Karen didn't win because Ryan came back. Karen won because by the time he did, she didn't need him anymore. And that is the only kind of winning that lasts. What this family went through isn't all that different from what so many people deal with in silence, behind closed doors, not knowing how to get out. There is an ebook in the description that might be the first step towards something different. Until the next story.